Arrow Season 5, Episode 4, Penance. Now, this episode I thought was pretty cool for some of the, the minor action scenes I thought were nice, but for the most part, this, once again, I was actually surprised by it, because, it's like, alright, so we have basically the entire last episode was, how can we trust you if you don't trust us? You gotta trust us so we can trust you, and it was a full circle of trust, do what you're supposed to do what you're told, but teamwork. All of it comes together. It's teamwork. We trust you. Oliver trusts the team. And he kind of gets over some of his greater issues of not letting more people get close to him. And I kind of thought that was it. And then it starts at the very beginning of this episode. It doesn't become like the main focus, but I thought that junk was said and done. And then the first freaking thing they do is Wild Dog just starts shooting the dude. And he screws up the whole thing because Evelyn, who we officially find out who she is, she's not taking over as the new Black Canary, which I thought was surprising because I thought that was the whole point of her character. But it turns out that she's actually going to be Artemis, which I thought was really sweet. And I feel like I talked about that at some point because I was like, I don't know if she's actually going to be Black Canary or if they'll do Artemis or whatever. But I thought that was cool. So we have our new Archer. She actually is a character from the comic, so just like with Flash, they find a way to put every freaking Archer, just like they find a way to put every freaking Speedster. So, it was cool. She doesn't have the same color scheme, because actually Artemis has a very similar color scheme to Green Arrow, because she actually wears a green outfit, just like he does. It clearly looks totally different, because it's two different people. But in this, it was still kind of like she's wearing just like a black outfit, so they didn't really go kind of full on with the costume element of it, or her comic book costume of it. But we do find out that she is officially Artemis now, so I thought that was pretty cool because basically they were just calling her Evelyn Sharp. Like, that was it. It was like Evelyn. Felicity calls her Evie in this, so I guess I'll start calling her that for sure. But I was like, what in the world is she gonna be? Because they don't really have her in the Black Canary costume. She kind of doesn't. She didn't, like, until this episode, she wasn't doing anything specific. So I was like, I think she's the new Black Canary, but they never said it, and her costume looked totally different. It didn't even seem to be reminiscent. I mean, it was a black costume, I guess, but it was like they didn't seem to really specify, who she was in her element, what she was going to be doing. And so I thought it was really cool, where it was like, he calls her Artemis. We see that she's, using a bow and arrow. So I thought that was pretty sweet, a cool way to bring your character in. She's not taking over as the third Black Canary, which I'm perfectly fine with. And we get to see a new type of Archer. Now, I highly doubt they'll do this because there's some insane stuff with the character of Artemis as far as her storyline and who she knows, we'll say. So I don't think they'll be going that route, but they could, because we don't know anything about Evelyn. We don't know her history, backstory. We got like a little bit of it, I think, in the episode when she was acting like Black Canary the first time. So we don't really know anything about her. So they could pull some stuff from the comics and it would easily work because she's kind of a blank slate at this point. But I thought it was cool. So they named her Artemis. She's going to be the new Archer on the team. And we'll, see how well she gets with that. But I thought it was cool to see that. Like I said, it starts off once again, the team dynamic is not exactly working out too well for Oliver. He's getting pissed off. Renee is still not paying any sort of attention. And also, I never really brought this up. I brought it up in the very beginning when Renee first showed up. But Oliver does not seem to care that he's going around just shooting everybody. Like, there's never been a conversation like, hey, you can't go around killing everybody. Here are, like, super fancy comic book tranquilizer guns. Real tranquilizer guns. It's not that comic booky. But it's like, here, just use these. And if you want to make them seem like real guns, you can actually, tranquilizer guns after a certain while do end up becoming super loud. I believe they do, or maybe I'm thinking of suppressors after they wear out. That's what I'm thinking of, so never mind. But there's never been any sort of conversation. He has a sniper rifle, which also seemed like it had a suppressor, and it sounded like he was just shooting a normal gun. I was like, that sounds really loud, but that looks like a suppressor on the end of that sniper rifle. But he goes around and he just shoots people. He does a dual wielding thing, which I actually think looks pretty cool every time. But I was like, does this not matter? I mean, I know Oliver was doing this thing, and there was even in like the first episode where it's like, are you killing people? Are you not killing people? I thought you said you stopped, and then it was like him being busted or whatever, in the premiere where he had to kill that guy, which they kind of reference, to the first episode of the series. And it's like, oh, you killed that guy, so I thought you were done with that. And, excuse me, for him, he kind of made it seem like, I had to kill that guy because he knew, he kind of found out who I was. I kind of beat the crap out of him. And he's like, I can't let you know who I am. So he snapped his neck and killed him. It was like, all right, that kind of makes sense. And he's still coming off of the Damien Dark thing. This is like the first big battle after, the last season. But now it's just like the whole team dynamic. I mean, everybody else just fights, but Renee goes in there. He's literally only there to kill people. I mean, that's not his purpose, but he's just guns blazing. He's killing everybody that he gets his hands on. And that's always been a big thing where it's like, don't kill these people, don't kill that people, but they haven't talked about it, so I guess he just doesn't care if the team kills people, but that's not what he's doing anymore because he could be doing that if he wanted to, but he's not, and I don't know if that's to help get these criminals to flip on like Tobias Church, if that was why he only shot that guy in the leg, or if he's not actually killing people or what. But it's a little confusing because they kind of brought that up in the premiere. But ever since he's had the team thing where it's like Renee specifically, because he uses handguns, unless I've missed a scene somewhere where they've been like, hey, use these guns because they're actually tranquilizers, he's just going around shooting at people. He seems to miss a lot. He only seems to punch and kick people. He doesn't actually ever seem to shoot anybody, so maybe that's why, because he shoots like a stormtrooper and he just misses. But I thought it was weird. I was like, I finally remembered to talk about it during a review, because it's like every episode I watch it, I'm like, there's still not a conversation about him, dual wielding handguns when they go on missions. Everybody else is punching and kicking. We have Artemis now, so she's of course using the bow and arrow, which I assume would be similar to, what Oliver and Thea were doing, where, they'd hit people in the leg or in the arm. Even though it always looks like they shot him straight in the heart, it would be like just right above it in the arm. So he's going around, and his whole thing, he literally had a sniper rifle, and I guess his thing was like, okay, well, we can't get this guy, so let's shoot him. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I just missed it, but wanted to mention that because I always thought it was weird. Every time I see it, I'm like, I feel like there should have been a conversation about either him not killing people or Oliver just being like, whatever, because they kind of left it a little vague in that premiere where he was like, had to kill that guy, and I'm not 100% sure if I'm going back to killing people or if I'm going to go back to not killing people. And it was kind of just left there. It's kind of left like he's kind of in the middle. But now he has this team where one of his members, clearly with the handguns, can only like shoot people in the arms or pretty much kill people. But even if they threw in like a cheesy line like, oh, I only shoot people in the arms and legs, it would have been super cheesy, but at least it would have been there. And like I said, maybe I missed something, but I feel like it's just been completely blank, where there's been no conversations about him using guns all the time, shooting at people and killing them. Excuse me. They were shooting at people in this episode and stuff like that, so I don't really know what the deal is, but I wanted to kind of mention that before I get into the rest of the episode, which was actually really good as far as the team dynamic. Outside of Wild Dog screwing up in the beginning again, technically Oliver got over it pretty fast, and I guess he didn't have much of a choice, because it was like, alright, that happens, and then his first thing is like, alright, you guys take a couple days off, because really he was going to do that mission to save Diggle. So they tried to stop him, which I love that scene actually when the rest of the team tries to stop Oliver, because it went as quickly as I thought it should have, because I'm like, alright, I know they've been training and stuff, but this is still Oliver. This still shouldn't take any time at all, and it didn't. And basically it was like the first episode where they were training, where he knocked everyone out. He had to punch Renee twice. Like, that was the most he had to do, is punch him twice. So he takes everybody out in basically one hit, and then he's gone. I was like, that was actually a perfect scene, because they tried to stop him. He's super stubborn. That's his thing. He wants to save his friend, and he still whoops them. He's way better than all three of them combined, and they show that. Like, they've trained for like a couple of days, maybe a week, we'll say, even 2 weeks. No difference. Kick, flip, punch, and he just drove off. And I was like, that actually lasted the perfect amount, and it went just as fast as it should have gone, because they shouldn't be, any better at this point. Like, they should still not be able to take him on, at least. I mean, maybe other villains, sure, but Oliver himself, definitely not. So that was actually very well done. Where he's like, oh, you're gonna, not let me do this. Beats them up, and he just takes off. So I was like, that I thought was probably the best scene in the whole episode, just because it went exactly as I thought it should have gone. It's just like, boom, they try to stop him, and they get destroyed. And Felicity actually had a good point, which I kind of loved, when Curtis is like, how did you think this was going to go again? And she's like, I thought if he saw the three of you actually united as a team, it would actually make a difference to him. And, of course, Curtis made an even greater point where it's like, yeah, because he's definitely the guy who takes, criticism and words of advice from other people. So they both had good points. Curtis, I think, had better points because we've seen the series. It's just Oliver. He has not changed. So I thought that was a great scene. Like I said, him going to save Diggle I thought was interesting. And I'm still really curious how this is supposed to play out, because now he's just on the run, and I would have to assume that it's not just going to end like, oh, Diggle's on the run forever. They're going to find these guys. Like, he broke them out even though Diggle wanted to, like, suffer for what he did to his brother. They got him out. So, like, he's out now, and then at this point it's like, okay, the only option he has is to either be a criminal for the rest of his life, or it's to find, the other guys from the army, which means he'd probably have to go back over to whatever that fake country was that they were in. I can't think of it. Latveria, I believe. Or is that? That might be Marvel. I don't remember. So, I think that is... I can't remember. All these fake countries. So, that, I think, is where his story has to go. He has to go and find the people that tried to frame him and prove his innocence. Although, technically, he still left prison. So, even if you're innocent, I think things are kind of stupid. It's like, oh, you never should have been there in the first place, but you still left when we didn't want you to. So even if he proves his innocence, I don't think it'll matter. It's weird how things work, even though you shouldn't have been there in the first place. So I assume that that's where his storyline, admittedly at this point, has to go. Otherwise, they're just on the run. Like, they're gonna go look for Lila. Like, okay, you're the wife of this man who was in prison, and now suddenly he's gone. And so, of course, if she's not at home with their son, it's going to be real suspicious. She just never shows up at home. Who knows what the F is even going to happen to their son, who we, still haven't seen outside of that picture if you watched The Flash. So, I'm still a little confused as to how that's going to play out for them. Also, they mentioned that the location that they're in is actually Hive. So I thought that was interesting. It's the old Hive spot. So I don't know exactly where it's going, but I assume with him being, kind of a wanted man at this point, his only real option is to actually find these people and say, hey, they were the ones that sold this nuke, whatever. He has to find them, either, take them out, or just really prove that they're the ones that took the nuke and find out who they were trying to meet, which may or may not be relevant this season. I feel like it's either something that's going to be big this season, or that's something they're saving until, like, the next season. Like, who is the army guy supposed to meet up with? Because typically it's like, okay, they meet up with these random criminals who are going to just, be generic terrorists or whatever who want to bomb. And yet they don't show up, so that's kind of suspicious, like, what was going on with that. It seemed like a fairly cut and dry sort of case, but things went wrong. The people randomly, just didn't seem to show up. So there's got to be something there, that's going to be a bit of a reveal later on. Like I said, either this season. I would assume this season. I don't think they'll introduce something like that. And they'd be like, hey, remember this from, like, the 3rd episode of the last season, a year from now. So I assume that whatever's going to happen with the nuke and stuff will kind of at least be touched on. It might not be 100% resolved this season, but it will at least get touched upon before, this season's finale. So I am kind of excited to see where they take this. It's really hard to know what to expect. It seems like it'll just be Diggle and Lila kind of on the run. So I don't know how that's going to play out. But I am still excited to see where they take his storyline. And, we have Oliver and the rest of the team, including Ragman, who decides that he will, rejoin the team, and he it's not going to go nuts and kill Felicity, because I was really worried how that was going to play out. But he decides that she had an impossible decision to make, and that they can't, neither of them should be swallowed up by guilt, so they have to help each other and remain a team. So I thought that was cool. We also got to see some cool effects from Ragman, where like he blocks basically the debris and explosion from the grenade from the wall, and then we find out he can actually like block bullets and stuff. He doesn't even have to look. He technically just turns around, and then he's just like, I guess he was grabbing the bullets, or I guess whipping them out of the air with the rags. So that was interesting to see. I was like, that's actually really cool, and it was way more than, he used them as like whips basically and grabbed people and swung them around. He's like blocking debris and blocking bullets. So it kind of boosted up how cool his character was as far as I was concerned. And I also finally figured out why that guy looks so incredibly familiar to me, and it's because he was in the series Blind Spot in the last season. I was like, like when I first saw him, like, he looks insanely familiar. I just couldn't figure out what it was. So now I remember, why I know him, which is also a Greg Berlanti show. Blind Spot is on NBC, but it's also Greg Berlanti. So maybe that's why they brought him over, because they liked him as an actor or something like that. But I thought it was funny when I finally recognized, like, oh, he's from that other Greg Berlanti show. Like the one show Greg Berlanti does that's not comic book based. But I thought that was interesting when I finally realized, like, oh, that's what he's from. Blind Spot's a great show, by the way, if you haven't checked it out. But I like what they did with the team dynamic. He rejoins the team. They're working together by the end of the episode. They have to still really come together against Tobias Church, because he's just kind of building himself up as a villain. And then this next episode, I'm really excited to see what they do, because despite all the good that comes from the team dynamic, with Oliver doing his own thing with Diggle, the team still has to be the superhero team, and unfortunately that leads to Renee actually getting captured. And he has this cool moment after Curtis gets a knife straight in his back. Renee decides to stay behind, so we have Wild Dog versus Church, and I thought that was a cool little scene. Nice little bit of action in there, close quarters combat style. I always love it because it's hilarious, but it was so obvious that it was a stunt actor for Church. It was really crazy, because they did, if you want, I think it was the very first shot when they're fighting each other, and they do this a lot in TV shows where it's action based. If they don't have a way to do a far away cut where it's oh, the person ducked down so you don't ever see their face, they literally just blur the face. If they know that the person's right there, they just blur the person's face, and it's oh, look how fuzzy their face is. But because it was such a close shot, it's it's very clear that they just blurred his face. And I think they did that before in Arrow, and I was that just looks so weird. I know why they have to do it, because it's alright, this is literally a full-on shot. And they do, if you watch really old movies, it's oh wow, you just did a close-up, and clearly this dude is not the same, it's not the actor. So I know why they do that stuff. It makes it less obvious when you just blur something out instead of just, if it was a black circle, obviously it'd be insanely obvious. But it's just really funny, when they do that first shot, and it's oh, they put the blur on his face so you can't recognize that it's him. But I think I pay attention to that all the time, because I'm always looking okay, stunt fighter. I think every time for Tobias Church, because the actual actor, I can't think of his name, he's a big dude. So he's not doing all that flipping and spinning and stuff. And it's also kind of funny, because when they switch to the stunt actor, he doesn't really have the same body shape. At least when I see him, alright, the guy who plays Church is a bigger dude. He's muscular and stuff, and he's just bigger all around, I'd say. And then when they switch to the stunt actor, I feel he's a lot skinnier. He's fit, because of course clearly he exercises and does the stunt coordination. But it's this guy looks, it doesn't seem as close as other stunt doubles to me, because it's that guy is just so huge in stature. It's kind of hard to find someone with his exact stature that can do do all those moves. So it's kind of funny. It's just the challenges making television. It's just funny to me. It's not nothing to rag on the episode, but I just find it really funny, because it's it's hard to find someone with that stature that can move like that. So when he goes to the stunt double, it's that he just looks so different to me. It's kind of funny. And then they did that early on in the episode when they had Curtis, but I know that he was a gymnast, and they did this sometime last season. I think it was when the cave was being like shot up or whatever, and he did like a crazy flip over the banister. I'm like, I know he was a gymnast, but because you do, Olympic training, that doesn't mean you did martial arts. It doesn't mean you know how to do like flips and blocks and kicks and stuff. And I'm like, it's just weird. It doesn't translate. Like, I know that he did Olympic training and stuff. That does not translate to martial arts unless he did like judo, which I believe is in Olympic somewhere in there. One of the things that they don't really show off, but every time I see him do like some martial arts type stuff, he's flipping and fighting like a normal, stunt actor coming in to do it. I'm like, I just don't feel like he should be fighting this well. Like, they could just do it where he basically boxes. I think it would work way better. But they always have these random parts where he's doing like crazy spins and blocks and stuff, and I'm like, that just doesn't seem to fit Curtis in any way, shape, or form to me. Like, him being able to just naturally fight, I can see that, but he's like blocking and he's moving super, super fast. Like, his reflexes could be faster with the Olympic training, but that doesn't instantly equate to the type of moves he was doing. I was like, that's clearly like, it was just so coordinated. It just looks coordinated, like some martial arts type stuff. And I was just like, that is weird to me. But to get off all the stunt actor stuff and the obvious changes in the characters and actors, I enjoyed this episode. I'm super excited to see where they go with Renee. They make a big point of saying that Church finds out that Oliver is Green Arrow, so I'm excited to see that. We get like some crazy like tech assassin coming in, which was a pretty cool costume to me. Oliver, I'm assuming, fakes his death, of course. He's like, oh, I know that they hired an assassin. I'll get some little squibs, and I'm dead now. So of course that's gonna happen. It'll be fake. The flashbacks in this episode were fine. There wasn't anything super special about it. He basically did like a tiny little mission, and it was kind of I think it tied in more with the Diggle thing than it did, the rest of the episode, because it's like, you have to, sometimes things are done that just don't seem to make a lot of sense, but they just have to be done regardless. And for Diggle, it was Oliver rescuing him. Like, this doesn't make sense to do this. I don't want this to happen. But for Oliver, it's like, you just got to trust me. I felt that was the connection, at least. So I enjoyed that. It fits in line, as I said. I'm just happy that they actually worked this season compared to last season, where it's like, here's a story, and here's the flashback story, and nothing fits. So I'm just happy that it's like that. Very excited to see what they do with Church and Renee in this next episode. Of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this one, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I want to know how you guys think things are going to play out with Church having Renee and getting the info that Oliver is Green Arrow. I'm assuming that'll bring in Prometheus finally, because he showed up once or twice. Nothing makes sense. So I don't know what's going to happen with that character, but I think this might lead to the return of Prometheus. So want to know what you guys think about that and the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.